Hey guys, just before I get started, I'd like to let you know that this video is sponsored by Ant-Keeping Depot. So in today's video, I'm actually going to be building a Wakooshi Outworld. This is a Series 4 Outworld module, and I thought it would be a bit different if I built it. So when I looked at the instructions, they were depicted by a different size. So I decided not to use any instructions at all, as it's relatively straightforward. We have clearly a base, a lid, 4 sides, and we have 2 lids to choose from. So we have the acrylic lid from the website's pictures, and we have a newer 3D printed mesh lid that I first saw introduced in the Weaver Outworld as a second option. So I would use the acrylic one if you want a high humidity sensitive species, and then use the other one if you're wanting airflow. So I'm going to start off simply by just installing the little bit of acrylic into this connector port, as this was just relatively straightforward. Get it out of the way, get it all done. Once that's done, how it's basically going to go is the acrylic's going to go in the center here, and it's the piece depicted with the cutout in it, so you know which piece is actually going to be your front. But as it is a cube, and if you work it right, you don't actually have to have the front where the port is. You can change that by putting the ceiling on at an angle. So how I'm going to build it is the way I build my Weaver Outworlds as well, is I'm going to build and attach all the attachments to the base. I'm going to do the entire base, basically. So I'm going to start off here, and I'm going to work my way through until the base has all of its nodules, as you can see here. So it's got corner pieces, and each side has got the 4 pieces. Now, I want my port to be leading out to the side. So, because I use shelving systems for my ants, so I don't want it out the front because it just won't be able to be used. So, once I've decided what side this is going on, it's important to make sure that I've got 2 options for this, because each side is not totally equal. So, what you need to do is make sure your panel lines up with the acrylic below. If it doesn't, then you need to rotate it once and make sure it does, but mine lines up perfectly here, and this is because this sheet actually rests on top of the other sheet after the corner, so the other sheet is actually coming into this one, so it overlaps. So I'm just attaching the second sheet, so I've made a right angle now, so I'm just going to go ahead and get this screwed on. Now, instead of recording all of this Allen key work, I'm just going to jump to all 3 sides are on. So now I've made a U shape basically, so I've got the base fully done, and I've got the U shape fully done, and now I'm going to attach the front plate as well. And there's nothing complicated about any of this. It's actually more intimidating to look at than actually do. It's really easy and straightforward. Do you know what? I think the hardest thing when you're doing this is fingerprints. Trying to keep your nice shiny new Outworld fingerprint free is probably the hardest part of the build. So now I have all 4 pieces. So I'm going to orientate it to how I'm going to have it. So when we're looking at it, the exit is on the left. Now, the lid. I'm going to attach all the pieces to the lid, but there's an extra step here now. We've got all the corner joints. We need to attach the support beams. Now, in this particular size, there is 2. Now, not only will these act as pillars for the accessories that make this Outworld really cool, in my opinion, but these will also help towards supporting the roof part. Now with a piece of acrylic this size, it's not a major issue. This is more for accessories. But as you go up in Outworld sizes, the pillars become fundamentally structural. So once I've got both pillars screwed on, I'm going to pop in the 2 expansion ports by just pushing them in, and then using the small O-ring to twist lock these in place. Now these can be used for expansion, but their primary purpose is for test tubes that have a 3D printed water feeder end, so you can do everything from outside. Anyway, once you've done this, you just slide it in and you just get all your nodules to fall into the acrylic box that you've already made. Now, if you didn't want your connection port off to the left, you would just orientate your lid to face whatever way you want the front to be. So if you've orientated your lid towards the expansion port, then the front of the unit would be the expansion port. If you wanted your expansion port to the rear, you would orientate your lid away from it, because the lid is universal, as in it can go any side, because it's the same size. It overlaps all previous acrylics. So at this point you can choose what side you want your connection port to be by just rotating your lid, or ceiling, however you want to refer to it here. I know the lid is more the piece that you lift off, so top layer or ceiling. I'm going to call it ceiling. So I'm just going to screw it up, so you'll have basically 2 sides on every corner, and then the top one doesn't have 2 middle parts, it just has a single piece. And once we've done that, that is pretty much the Outworld finished. So this is the 3D printed lid that I'm going to use. Airflow, keep the stale air out, is the way I want to go. It's not going with a particularly prone species. Humidity is not overly concerning. So I've put in some accessories. I've put in the jelly ring accessory and the feeding plate accessory. Now the feeding plate accessory I use for everything in my other colonies. I use it for liquid feeding to meat insects, cooled down flies, you name it, they go into this. And most of the time it never gets dirty because the ants really do clean up after themselves. But if it ever does, a nice cool dishwash run is okay if you're doing more than one. If not, just give it a nice little scrub in some warm luke water. I hope you've enjoyed this little bit different build video, and if you're wanting more content on this Outworld and all we've done is build with it, rest assured we'll be giving it to some ants very soon, so stay tuned.